All right. Well, let's, for the sake of not wasting any time, hopefully Rodriguez and Courtney join shortly. Let's kick it off. So, select Steves, if you want to kick this off. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is HMC Select Canada Speed. I am currently at RCC Southwest in beautiful San Diego. I am married to active duty spouse, and I have 3 children, 5, 4, and 1. Very interesting going through season with COVID and young children. Let's see a little bit about me. I've been in the Navy for a total of 12 years, 5 active, 7 reserve. I was at Naval Hospital Jacksonville, and then I've been in like Hawaii Reserve Unit, and then here in San Diego as well. The question that I have is, so for us, pinning is 19 days away. It's coming by super, super fast. And, what happens the next day? How do you transition so abruptly from being a select to, being a part of the mess if I get accepted?
Matt?
Hi, this is Chief Collins. I guess I'm supposed to introduce myself as well. I'm Matt Collins. I live in Annapolis. I'm an IS. I work at ONI as a civilian, Office of Naval Intelligence, and I also drill there. So I guess my experience was I made it when I was on the ADT, and my orders. So we pinned in September, and then I got orders to a different command, another set of 82 orders in October. So everybody I had gone through with that knew me as a chief select, I left behind. It was a huge blessing to me that I got to have a fresh start. But I walked in and I just introduced. I didn't say hi. I've been a chief for 2 weeks. I just walked in and said, "Hi, I'm Chief Collins." Nobody questioned whether I had made it 2 weeks earlier or 2 years earlier. And everybody, it was just an acceptance thing. So even if you're going through where the genuines from this season will know you, yeah, there's going to be like some of the first year chief stuff where it's a little different, but really you're wearing the anchors, you're a part of the mess. You're either in the mess or you're not. It's not really a thing of like this period is when the training wheels are on. When the anchors get put on, the training wheels come off, and we're expecting you to be a fully functioning person. That's the point of the initiation process, is to get you ready. And the idea is, if you finish initiation in San Diego and then you immediately transferred to come out to Washington, D.C., even if we knew you were a first year chief, everybody in DC is going to say, well, Spees went through, she made it through the process. We trust that the San Diego group did what they were supposed to do. So it's like a universal pass. If that makes, like, you went through it somewhere, it's good everywhere. No one's going to be asking you to prove yourself again or looking at you through a microscope. So unless you draw attention to the fact that you are new or like a rookie, no one else is. Does that make sense? I hope that reassures you that you're not like a lesser class citizen.
Thank you, Chief. So in this instance for myself, I'm not going anywhere for 2 to 3 years. So I'm on definite recall. And the mess that I'm going through with right now is going to be the mess that I'll hopefully be joining in 19 days. So I don't know, they see how I've been throughout, season, and then just going to have to integrate. I guess I'm kind of nervous.
I promise they, as strange as it seems right now, and it will be, you'll feel awkward, but they won't. Okay, like this happens every year for the since the initiation process began. People have been going through the process and then showing up to their local mess the next day. So it's basically on the genuines to do the accepting, and you just show up and be the best that you can be. Like that's really it. And it will be weird when people are like, call me by my first name, and you've gotten so used to calling them most highly honorable Master Chief, Lord of the Universe, and then you're like, oh hey Bob, but they're Bob now.
Thank you.
If I could just piggyback on that real quick, I think there's two things. There's how you see yourself right now at this moment in time, or maybe prior, or maybe in 19 days, whatever the case may be. But it's how you see yourself and how the mess sees you, and one of the two drives the other. And I hope you know which one drives the other, and that's kind of the crux of what we're talking about here. So I'm just going to kind of leave it at that. But how you see yourself is going to be the trigger to a lot of things, and just leave it there. Cool. Anybody else have any responses for that, or no? If not, we'll move on to Select Courtney. How are you?
Good night, everyone. ITC Select Courtney here. I'm actually in the field at work today, driving around. Yes, ITC Select Courtney from North New York City. I've been in the reserves for 14 years, and my question to the genuines is, how do I get around the anxiety of going to a new unit as an SCL, especially as a chief for the very first time? How did you get over the that feeling?
Anybody from the mess?
So, Chief Select Courtney, are you going to be the only chief in your new unit?
Oh, it's just an example. No, I'm in my unit. I'm gonna be one of two.
Okay. So, I mean, so you won't be totally alone. But you'll be starting in a new place. You won't just be where you're already drilling.
Oh no, it's just an example. My date changed, so I may have to start looking for a new unit pretty soon.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm pretty excited, but I'm still a little nervous at the same time.
Okay. So I went to a unit I had never been in. My first, because I like I said it before, I made chief while I was on ADT, and then when I went back to drilling, I was put in a new unit and I didn't know one person. Just came in like blind. And the thing was kind of like what I said to Spees, nobody knew that I had just made chief. I was just a chief, and I was in the unit, and everybody treated me just like the others. Within the mess, they knew that I was new, but it's still it was a larger mess, so I had more time to grow and kind of watch what they were doing. And if you're only one of two, you won't have that luxury. But the thing is, I mean, the critical step, no matter where you go, is get to know the people under you. Okay. Make a connection. Like the first thing you should do when you walk in the door is find the LPO, talk to the LPO, and get some kind of lay of the land of, one, do they seem like a quality squared away person? If they aren't, then you're in serious trouble. But you hope that the LPO is solid. And you go in, you talk to them, and you kind of get an idea of what's this unit like, where are the strengths, where are the weaknesses. You talk to the XO and the CO and you find out what are their expectations. What do they have? You can get a good feel if the most COs I've worked with, when I first met them, were like, I have all the respect in the world for chiefs. That's the kind of stuff you want to hear. If they don't say that, if they say the last chief we had was a scumbag and I couldn't trust anything that they did, now you know you've got to rehabilitate the image of the chief. But let's just say, best case scenario, you show up, your LPO solid, and your CO trusts what the chiefs do. Then you just go forth. You know what to do. Like you might, some of it's going to come naturally. And if you can't figure it out, what have we told you since the beginning of this process? What are you supposed to do if you don't know the answer?
Reach out to the mess.
That's right. So you could be by yourself, but you're not alone. You have all the selectees you went through with. You have your selectee brothers and sisters from here, and you have all the genuines from here that you've met, you've connected with. You can reach out and say, hey, there are Facebook groups that are just like the Goat Locker on Facebook or whatever, and you can join those. People all the time go in there and they type, hey, can someone tell me the latest PRT instruction or something? I can't find the link to it, whatever. And then within 5 minutes, it will have been given to you. So like the network is there, the people are there. It's really just try to be consistent. Walk in like you know what you're doing. If you walk in and look like you don't know what you're doing, it's going to be hard to earn trust and build confidence. So just walk in with confidence, and just really try to get to know people. That is the best thing you can do, and let them get to know you, because it breaks down some of the awkwardness when you build a relationship. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Anybody else from the mess? No? Okay. So let's move on to, thanks, Select Courtney. Appreciate that. Select Kirkpatrick. How you doing?
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
Good evening to all the genuines selects. So I'm QMC Select Michael Kirkpatrick. I've been in the Navy 14 years, all reserve time. I did do a mobilization in 2011 to Afghanistan for detainee ops. I was an AC for most of my career. I cross-rated to QM a few years ago for advancement purposes. I'm married. I have a wife, 2 kids, Sammy and Jake, who are 4 and 3 years old and crazy as can be. And I've really enjoyed the last 5 years of my life. It's been the best 5 years of my life ever since I got married to my wife. I've known her since 2012. So, so this season has been hard. You know, it's supposed to be, right? You all know. And so I guess what I'm thinking is, okay, it's almost over. I'm about to start taking on the responsibilities of an actual, genuine chief petty officer. I guess I'm starting to try to think forward to the time and balancing with my family. And, basically there's been very little balance during the season. And what's that going to look like after the season? How much of a balancing act did you guys find you still had to do in your first year as a chief? And any words of wisdom and, strategies or what do you got?
Hi, how you doing, Selects? ITCS Tim Williams. From Massachusetts. CWG6. Been in the Navy 18 years. And I'm still trying to figure out kind of how to do that. It doesn't get easier. I'm going to tell you that right now. that being said, things that you can do to help yourself, first and foremost is get organized. You know, the more organized you are, the much easier things are going to be for you. You'll likely always be busy, you know, and every time you think you can't get any busier, it can get busier. So don't underestimate that. Getting organized is going to help you typically mentally. It helps me mentally, anyways. But then prioritize, right? So you know, you take and you figure out what you need to do, and then you prioritize it. You know, and you know, you combine those two things, and it's if you have a clear vision of kind of what you need to get done, it doesn't matter if that list is 20 miles long. If you've prioritized it and you know X, Y, and Z, it's gonna set you at ease a little bit. At least it does for me. You know, it doesn't always feel good to look at that list and see that it's 20 miles long, but you know, by organizing it and prioritizing it and then crossing stuff off, you know, you can see what you get done. You know, and that alleviates a lot for me. So that's my biggest recommendation. And then you know, make sure you're putting the important things first. You know, your family, your health. You know, those are two things that you've got to nurture no matter what. So make sure you're taking care of those things. You know, obviously, we all want to be great chiefs. We all want to be, you know, we came here to do something. We want to do it. But without those, you know, two important pieces, you know, the rest of it, you know, is going to fall by the wayside eventually too. So please take care of those things as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the mess?
Hey, hopefully y'all can hear me. Sergeant CEO and Lever, Moss, Memphis, the medical department head there. Been in about 17 years. Active duty guy working in Moss. It's a totally different world. I apologize. It sounds a little funny. I'm driving home. I got about an hour drive. Just got done with the drill, but I still wanted to be here. If anybody's read through my charge yet, one of the things I say in there is because eventually we're all going to take off uniform, and they're the ones that are going to be there for us. They're the ones that got you through the season, of course. These the ones that are going to be there. So take care of them. But with that, you're still going to have to balance out work. You're going to get those phone calls after hours. I have my CEO texting me even when I'm on leave 2 and 3 times a day. You're always on duty. So taking the time, all right, you don't reply back to that message right now.
We lost you. If you can hear us. All right, so we may have lost Chief Lever there. So if you hadn't already, please go in and download his charge, because I think he was just he was trying to explain exactly what his charge said in relationship to you know, what we're talking about as far as balancing you know, our Navy and personal lives. It's obviously not an easy task. We all make mistakes, remember that. But we have each other. Like, you know, there's no doubt that if I'm in a valley, there's somebody that's, you know, doing okay right now that can help out and alleviate.
Y'all hear me again?
Yes. Yes, Chief.
All right. Sorry about that. I've got like one good dead spot on my drive home, and I just hit it.
We lost you again.
I just discovered a new dead spot.
Yeah. Okay, but as we were saying, Chief, can you hear us? You're still breaking up.
I'll go on to the next person.
All right, you got it. When you're clear, come back on, please.
Chief, I appreciate the effort. I will definitely read your charge.
All right, thanks, Selector Patrick. Let's move on to select Carrie. How are you?
I'm doing okay, thank you. Okay, so I forget we do this every time. I'm ISC Select Lauren Carey, based out of Fort Worth, Texas, living in Dallas, Texas. I've been a reservist the entire time with PACOM 03 or Indo PACOM 0308 out of Fort Worth. I did 2 years of ADT with CNIFR, working in the N3 department, helping Joe Karasik rebuild all the JRICs around the country. Great opportunity to learn both the 1,000-foot view from the headquarters perspective, as well as being in a drilling unit underneath the different regions, and then down into the actual unit level. So got a lot of great knowledge there. Rolled into my civilian employer with the Department of Justice, who I work with here in Dallas. Then went on a deployment in 2019 to Djibouti, supporting doing intel out there, obviously. Came back almost a year ago, 7 days shy of a year ago. I came back, rolled into COVID, and then into season with COVID, which has been a pain. No spouse, no kids, no dog. Just kind of have a friend's family rocking for me, which I appreciate every day. Their support is necessary. My question for today, or please help for today, is I'm struggling with the drive to do things right as the chief, to do things by the book, by the letter, to make sure you're doing the things that should be done the way they should be done, while balancing the make shit happen factor when you're not in the ideal situation and you're having to pull strings and you're on teams, or you're doing this, that, and the other thing to try to make something happen with a deadline right around the corner. How are you able to decide what is an acceptable, almost when is it okay to go to 80% solution to make sure the mission gets done, or when do you have to say no, it has to be, we have to say this can't happen, even though that means you're then like failing what you needed to be doing. And the scenario we were given in training, or we were discussing in training, is like an awards board. What happens if it's midnight and the awards board met at 8 o'clock that day, but you have another package to put in? Do you ask them to do another board? What if you can't get another board done? You don't want to just let your sailor go out and not have their awards board in because you should have had it in on time, but other life things happen. So what do you do? Do you try to augment the board? Do you just say no? How do you deal with that? I have to get this done, and the need to have it done perfectly, I guess. That's what I'm struggling with right now. If any of that made sense, I apologize.
All right, Chief Collins again. I guess the way I would look at it is prioritizing, starting with things like mobilization. Is you want to look at, is there, like, if you were looking at the things you had to get done that month, and one of them is, if you don't do it, a person can't mobilize, that is the number one choice. We had a situation where we had to stick around, hours. We had to call somebody to come back to the drill site to sign a form because the sailor required a detaching eval in order to mob like the next day. And somehow it hadn't been done, and they realized it was missing from the packet, and everybody was pointing the finger at each other. What mattered was it had to be done. There was nothing else on earth that was more important than that. And you won't always have that clear cut of a situation, but I think if it has to do with like mobilization, then it is performance evaluations, and awards are like right there on that level underneath. Okay. And somewhere in there, you also had to be dealing with the mission accomplishment, like whatever your unit is designed to be doing. But as the chief, hopefully you've got those systems in place that the LPOs are running most of the actual like mission execution, so that you can be focused on those other things. So there are some times, so like Sailor of the Year packages are incredibly detailed, like you must put this here and then this must be in this spot. And if it's not, it gets rejected. So that is the type of thing where 80% is 0%. Like if you spend 4 hours working on it and it's kind of okay, you might as well have spent 0 hours working on it, because it's not going to be competitive if it's not properly formatted. So you really, there's not a perfect solution to your question, which is why it's nerve-wracking. But I think the best way to not get yourself in a corner like that is to communicate early with your mess and say, okay, this is what I'm tracking. Is everyone else tracking this? There's this person that can't mow tomorrow unless we get this eval done. The sooner you tell everybody that, the better. And then once it's over, you look back and you go, how the heck did we get in this situation? How did we wait until 24 hours ahead of time to realize that this needed to be done? So you've got to stop and do those after action report type things, not to give. The CO might demand it. Sometimes they will. They'll say, you guys screwed up and explain yourselves. But even if the CO doesn't demand that, the mess needs to do an internal look to figure out how they got so messed up. Was it one person that just dropped the ball, or was it nobody actually ever even rogered up for it? So I think really it is that prioritization of how do we get them mobilized? How do we recognize them for their achievements? And then whatever falls under that. That's how other people could be like, Collins is crazy. Those are the worst rankings of all time, but that's okay. That's that's why we have more people in the mess than just me.
Thank you, Chief.
Anyone else from the mess?
So I would just tack on to that you know, there's, you know, if you're utilizing the mess, or you're utilizing your first classes, and you find the people that can do that task are the best. You're talking about struggling with, you know, being able to give it 100%. You know, there are people that are much better at evals than I am. There are people that are much better at award writing than I am. You know, so if you have folks in your unit and you understand their skill set, I would encourage you to utilize that to kind of to alleviate a little bit of that stress, you know, from trying to get things done, for you trying to do it for one thing, or do everything. You know, utilize the resources that you have to kind of help you get that done. And you know, obviously, good planning is key, but there's always going to be instances where you get thrown a curveball, right? And so when that happens, you know, identifying the solution and then trying to make that happen, utilizing the resources that you have, I would say, is rather than just trying to take everything on yourself, you know. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add on to that, and I think it was mentioned a couple of times. I mean, we talked about priority delegation, utilizing your resources. But step one, and going back to what Courtney asked earlier, is that you know, it's step one when you get to a point where there's a challenge or a potential challenge. Early detection is kind of what you know, what we do as a mess together. And the sooner we ask the question or reach out for help, you know, more quickly and more effectively we can manage that challenge. So I'm sure you guys as a select group have probably a WhatsApp, a text chat, you know, an email chain, and you guys are, you know, kind of hope, or at least hopefully working together and trying to figure out the priority. I'm sure that's, you know, what you're doing. And you know, that won't change. That's gonna, you know, carry over to the mess. When you enter the mess, we you know, work together and prioritize, like was mentioned a couple of times. So just early detection, ask for help as soon as possible, or advice, or whatever the case may be. There's no shame in the mess. You know, we all have strengths and weaknesses, and we balance each other, through communicating with one another what those strengths and weaknesses are. And, if we hold true to that and recognize that repeatedly and always recognize that, we should never feel like we're in a corner. And there's going to be times when we have to kind of dig ourselves out of a little bit of a hole, but it's, raise the hand, raise the flag and say, hey, I need help. I need assistance. I need reinforcement. So, anything else from the mess? Awesome. Thanks, Select Carrie. Let's move on to Select Taylor. How are you?
I'm well. How are you today?
Good, good, good.
Okay, well, I'm Chief Select Taylor. Been in for 19 years. I have 2 children, 1 boy, 1 girl. So I was lucky I got one of each. I'm FTS. I've been FTS my entire career. After leaving RCC Southeast Jacksonville, I will be headed to Res4. My question is, what advice would you give a new chief going into a mess that may clearly be divided? I think I stump y'all every night.
Well,
Yeah, I think the problem here, and I'm sorry, this is Senior Chief Garcia. I'm with Mesron 1 currently, but I'm about to rotate out into Fleet Forces Command Element. And I'm a reservist out here in Alameda, which is San Francisco Bay Area in California. So I'm sure there's a handful of pandemic epicenters in the United States, and we happen to be one of them. So that's a hard question, because the question I would pose back to you is, why is the mess divided? Right? And I've seen divided messes in a variety of aspects. I've seen divided messes because of a cadre of chiefs, and who maybe have are brothers in a specific mindset, as opposed to just brothers and sisters under the anchors. But I hate to say this, but I've actually seen a lot of messes that are divided, unfortunately, because of the command master chief that is there for a variety of reasons. And I would really this is going to be difficult because you're dealing with the mess. But I would say that you kind of have to still utilize a lot of the same elements that they're pushing you, right? You're going through the season right now. I don't know if your selectee mess has had their fight yet, right? But what kind of challenges have you guys had in your little selectee mess? But 90% of the time, I would say 3 out of 4 times, every year, the selectees end up, everybody gets frustrated. Everybody gets a specific mindset going. Everybody starts to butt heads, right? And so you guys find a way to address those issues and come together as a team. That's the entirety of the initiation process, is to teach you guys, challenge you to face those issues, and teach you guys to mesh. And there are situations under which we encounter that, as chiefs going from mess to mess. And I would say that it's basically the same challenges you deal with through the initiation process. And you just have to work together, and you have to figure out what the problems are, and you have to face those problems head on. I would say that one of the benefits of the initiation process, having a more universal foundation being taught, is that those key elements that we want to see pervasive around the chief's mess, the aspects of what a chief is that we are taking from our heritage, right? Because if you look back at the history of E7 and above, it's not it's not the greatest history in the world, right? We've treated each other poorly. We've thrown each other off ships. One of the MCPONs, and I'm forgetting which one it is off the top of my head, had a really good story about receiving his charge book, and it was literally had been defecated in. You'll talk to other chiefs who will talk about the initiation process that they went through, and it was just horrendous what some of our brothers and sisters in the past have have been allowed to get away with, and we're not bringing that forward, right? The heritage that we're bringing forward is the good things, the things that we want to move forward with. We want you guys to be leaders on a specific path, and so your process going through, we're not ignoring our history, we're acknowledging it, but what we want to carry forward are all the good things. And so the universal training that we're giving you, the challenges that we're forcing you to overcome, are set there so that you guys can walk into a mess, be able to see the issues, and be able to take that divided mess and hopefully come together to work as a cohesive team. And it does happen. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And the challenge is to identify exactly what that issue is. And I would say, I don't know where you're going through your season there, Select Taylor, but I imagine that whatever challenges you and your selectee class are having are probably not the same kinds of challenges that, let's say, I don't know, HMC Select SPEES, right? There's probably not the same challenges that HMC Select SPEES has to go through with her group. But what we're hopefully doing is giving you the tools and the courage and the character, right, to be able to see and recognize the issues and then take action to correct those in order for, once again, that whatever fractured chief mess that is to come together and be cohesive. And so you guys are kind of the answer to that. I'll be honest. The training that you guys are going through and forcing chiefs that went through the initiation process 10, 15 years ago and didn't get the valuable training that you guys are getting, didn't go through the season with the exact same experience that you guys are getting, and having them go through the season on this side is kind of, we as chiefs, we get trained every year just the same as you guys are getting trained. And so the initiation process is 100% the answer to your question. We want you. We're training you to be the chief that we want in every single mess to combat that exact problem. If that makes sense.
Okay. That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Selectee Taylor, I went into one mess where the cell had deployed, so another chief had stepped in to fill that role, and then the deployed cell returned. So there was sort of this power struggle between the person who was acting while the person was deployed remained in the cell position. And I walk in and it was almost like they wouldn't argue in front of each other, but when I would talk to them one-on-one, it was like they were trying to pull me to their side. Like, oh
Exactly.
yeah, I used to be in charge, and this guy, he thinks he knows what he's doing, but you'll see he doesn't. And I'm like, oh, okay. And that's like basically all I would do is go, all right, thanks for letting me know. And then the other guy would be like, oh, have you talked to so-and-so? Yeah, he just got back and he thinks he should be in charge again. And I'm like, all right, I'll keep that in mind. And I just tried my best to be as neutral as possible, because I'm like, I want to form my own opinions. And that's what I would try to tell them is, hey, all right, let me just observe. And then I'm not going to be on one side or the other. I'm going to do what's right. I'm going to support what is defensible by regulations, and both of them could have been wrong, and I would have challenged both of them. So I guess just resist that pull. And if you go in, you just have to keep a poker face and kind of read the room. And if there is somebody that's trying to get you to team up with them, that's pretty E7 behavior. That's not very brother or sisterly. So watch out. It can be a red flag if that happens. So fortunately, that situation ended up kind of smoothing itself out, but it was really startling my first 2 weekends there of being like, what's wrong with you people? So yeah, I'm not saying it never happens. The best thing you can do is delay commitment to one side or the other as long as possible.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else from the mess? All right, thanks, Select Taylor, for that. That's an awesome question, very real. Let's move on to Select Chow. How you doing, man?
Good evening, everybody. My name is PSC Select Chow from Nassau, Long Island, New York. I've been in the Navy for 12 years, including 4-year active duty and 8 years reserve duty. Been deployed with the Eisenhower back to active duty for 3 times to Persian Gulf. As a reservist, I was mobilized to Baghdad, Iraq 2 years ago, supporting the mission of Inherent Resolve. And then me, myself, I'm 35-year-old, a single man, no kids. And my question to the genuines is, what happens, how do you solve the problem when it comes to the situation, across the situation that your commanding officer or your officer in charge wants to give you a job or give you a mission, wants you to carry on for a job, and then you know he or she is wrong in both ways, by the either, no matter it's by the book or by the experiences. And then you try to explain to the officer in charge or the union CEO, and he or she just doesn't listen and just force you to make it happen. That was my question.
Okay, I'll start this, and let me just throw a couple of questions back to you. So you're asking, like, is what the this officer asking you, is it morally wrong, or is it by the, or is it not by the book, or both, or either?
So pretty much you and your commanding officer or officer in charge had disagreement on something, and you are right, no matter by the book or by your experiences. How do you carry on? How do you convince the commanding officer in charge to stick your answer, your solution?
Okay, well, I would start by saying, number one, if it's a decision that's going to put somebody in harm's way, that you would immediately need to I mean, you're going to do this anyway. You're going to go to the mess and your other mess brothers and sisters to discuss this. After first trying to talk about it, obviously, with this officer, whoever he or she may be. But if it's a situation where it is going to be putting somebody in harm's way, it would need immediate attention, and you would need to reach out to whoever you can, in order to prevent that, or express your concerns in a way that would get some attention, whether that be via the mess, via other members of the wardroom, and so on. And then if it's not, a safety, related type of scenario, if it's just an administrative thing that the commanding officer is deciding to, change a rule around something that really isn't gonna, that may not physically harm somebody, then yeah, I mean, have that conversation with that officer. Of course, reach out to your mess, have that conversation with them. Maybe there's something, always keep in mind that maybe there's something that you're missing, or that we're missing during the course of a one-on-one conversation, because I've been in, similar circumstances where I feel the same way. It's like, wait a minute, I think you're wrong, and I think this is the way we need to go. But when I bring somebody else in and I get a different perspective or a different experience, just like we're doing right now, I learned something, and the other person was right. So ensure that you're, bringing in the experiences and the and the expertise from folks, that may have greater, expertise and experience than you yourself. You have to be humble in that way, to where, nobody does this alone. We don't make decisions in a box on our own. especially the difficult ones. We do it as a group. So that would be my, I think that's kind of the crux to the whole thing, is that we, you know, in a circumstance like that, you would have to kind of recruit a group or a team, or, you know, go to your mess and get input. And that's how I'd handle it. Anybody else from the mess?
So I'll add to that. And I agree about the safety. You know, that's always number one, sailor safety. So, you know, anytime the sailors put in harm's way, you know, or potentially put in harm's way, you always want to intervene. But I've had an instance where a CO made a decision that, you know, I didn't agree with. And I explained the situation, explained why I thought it wasn't the right move. You know, and even if there is, you know, instruction that backs you up and that person is insistent, there are instances where, you know, they're the CO, they're the commanding officer. It's their mistake to make. It's their career. And sometimes, you know, you can, you know, the old adage, you know, you can lead a horse to water. It's the same thing, you know, and so sometimes, you know, you just have to shut up and color, you know, to put it in a better instance, you know, and it stinks because, you know, you want to be that advisor, you're trying to help them and they don't see it, and that's unfortunate. But you know, you know, again, consult the mess, absolutely. You want to, you know, do everything you can, absolutely, you know, to help them make a better decision. But at the end of the day, if safety is not involved and it's a life-threatening situation, you've got to, you know, let them make that mistake. You know, if it's a mistake, it's their career, they're in charge, and you have to unfortunately respect that aspect of it sometimes. So
My favorite "I told you so" moment was when my XO was determined that we have a dining out on a vessel. He was like, "It must be on a ship. Get us on a ship, Chief. You got to be on a ship." So I tried to book these dang, like, the party cruises and the things where you can get the, like, so anyway, they had these harbor cruise boats, but he wanted the whole ship for just us, and he had this ambition that we were going to invite admirals and we were going to invite all these regional bigwigs to come to this thing, and it was going to be the greatest thing anyone's ever seen. Anyway, it had to be on a ship. And I called and found out it was going to be thousands of dollars. And I kept telling him, like, I looked for all kinds of alternatives. Like, we can go to an aquarium. That's kind of like, you know, there's like that's nautically related. I tried to come up with all kinds of things, and he just was not hearing it. He just was like, it has to be on a boat. Get me on a boat. Okay. So then I polled the people, because I realized it was going to be like $100 a person to go on this thing. So I started asking the enlisted members of the unit, how much would you pay to go on a Saturday night of drill weekend on a boat and ride around with the other people in the unit? And some of them were like, you couldn't pay me to do that. The last thing I want to do is spend another second with you people when I don't have to. Like, okay. And then some people were like, I'd pay $10, I'd pay $20. So I'm like, look, man, there's no way we're going to get this money covered. But he just kept pressing. So I followed his orders because no lives were on the line. You know, it wasn't a safety issue. It was just really stupid. And so I booked the ship. And then, of course, we didn't get enough money from the group, the unit, but it still had to be paid. And the guy from his own account wrote a check for $1,000 to pay for this stupid boat party. And there were no regrets on my end. It was almost worth it to me to do all the work that I did just to smirk as he had to pay $1,000 to that boat captain. So some people are just that stupid and they won't listen. And it wasn't dangerous. It wasn't illegal. It was just unbelievably misguided. So if instead he had been like, Chief, I think we should put paint thinner in the grog, I would have been like, nope, we're definitely not doing that. So, like, there are things where you'd have to draw the line and be like, people are going to die. But if he wants to spend $1,000 of his own money to feel like he's a sailor, I'll let him do it.
I like that story, Chief. Thank you for sharing.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So we got about 10 minutes. So let's select Rodriguez. How are you?
Hi, how are you, Senior?
Good. Good. Good.
Good. So HMC Select Rodriguez, I've been a reservist for 18 and a half years. I drill out of NAS Fort Dix. I am doing my season with NAS New York City, where I originated from. I have 2 kids and a grandson, a 29-year-old daughter who's listening to me right now, a 12-year-old son, and a 11-year-old grandson. On the civilian side, I'm an investigator for the Westchester County District Attorney's Office. My question to the chiefs is, what do you do to keep your sailors motivated and how do you get them off that roller coaster? I feel like as a reservist, we're like kind of love and hate. We love to be there, then we don't want to be there. It's just a constant roller coaster. I mean, I've been in 18 and a half years. I went through that myself. So what's the best way to kind of get them out of that rut when they're stuck in that rut?
All right, I'll throw something out there. So I, as a unit cell, I certainly see that all the time, and it's one thing that I've found over the units that I've been in over the years that, you know, not to underestimate your ability to set the tone for the command. In other words, your attitude can go a long way towards curtailing that. If you come in and, you know, you're dragging on a drill weekend, you know, or all the time, and you're not, you know, putting out a good vibe, then, you know, your sailors are going to pick up on that, and that's going to help set the tone for that command to be like that. The flip side of that, you know, obviously, if you come in and you're always energetic, if you're excited about being there, and you come up with ways to make them excited to be in the Navy, you know, that's one of the first things I did when I got to the command I'm at right now is to basically point out, you know, kind of the value that I see that they bring to the Navy, you know, and if you can keep them engaged and understand their value and make their job seem worthwhile, I find that motivates tremendously. You know, my sailors know, you know, and I get that the CO is on board with that, so I've got him on board with that, and you know, we're constantly thanking them for their service and the work that they do every drill weekend. Show the appreciation. And if you're engaged with them, you know, individually, I find that goes a long way as well. You know, if you know about a little bit about your sailors, if you know about what their career aspirations are, and you can speak to those sailors and continue to make sure that you're providing them with what they need to be engaged and to make it feel like they're making a difference versus just showing up on a drill weekend. You know, it's tough in the reserve sometimes. We don't always have you know, I'm in a cryptologic warfare group 6. We don't always have mission work to do, you know, which is hard, you know, because then they don't feel like, you know, they're contributing. It's like, oh, all we do is train stuff. So, but, you know, then we shift to leadership, you know, and because they don't know, you know, they're a lot of them are junior. They don't have a lot of leadership experience. So if you can, you know, shift and adapt what you do based on kind of the workload that you have so that they're doing something that they feel is valuable. I think that's a big part of, and then, like I said, your own attitude about that and your own attitude about the mission and coming in on drill weekends, you know, can really set that tone. So the more positive I think you are and the triad is, and the more that, you know, you guys put a united front up, you know, that shows that you're interested in the sailors, I think it goes a tremendous way to making folks want to be there versus just kind of having to be there. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Senior.
Anybody else from the mess? All right, so just to kind of piggyback on that a little, obviously the you know, CDB is the formal way we kind of sit down with our sailors and discuss their goals and their vision and their training plans and that sort of thing. And just like Senior was mentioning, you know, be intrusive. I mean, they teach us at every leadership course, right? KYP, know your people. Get personal with them. You know, it's not a matter really of becoming best friends with, you know, obviously our junior sailors, but you know, we want to, you know, we have to establish a foundation of trust and that we care and that we give a damn. And, you know, that goes a long way when it comes to maintaining that motivation that you ask about. And there's going to be times when there's challenges and they lose it. We've all lost it, right? And whether once or many times during our own journeys, we lose that motivation, and we tend to lean on people who pick us up. So be that person who picks your junior sailors up, right? Be that shining light, like everybody's mentioned. Be that voice of reason in a divided mess. You know, don't take sides. Just be that shining light. Find that common ground, and you know, try and advance the situation in a positive direction. And you know, it's hard work. I mean, these are the things we talk about during these discussions are so profound in the way that, you know, we have to kind of you know, somebody mentioned like on their way to work, I think it was the other day, you know, they have an hour drive to work and they get their head around, you know, what they're about to go into, who they might see that morning, who they, you know, what issue they might be facing as soon as they walk in the door, or what just needs to be done that day. So, you know, it's a discipline. It's being purposeful about, you know, your actions throughout the course of a day, you know, around junior sailors and what needs to be executed. And it's hard, right? But if we discipline ourselves and surround ourselves with effective people that think the same and that support the same goal, you know, that makes it that much easier. So again, it's a concerted effort every day as a chief to understand what you need to accomplish, have a plan, recognize that you will make mistakes, but you overcome those mistakes by leaning on your brothers and sisters. And I know it's easier said than done, but you kind of always have to do a little bit of an inventory and put yourself back in that place and back, you know, back in that mindset, if that makes sense. So I like kind of look at things. Awesome. Anything else from the mess? I think we're coming up on time here. I believe everybody's going back to the fantail for Pride presentations. So I appreciate you guys, everything you've had. I mean, it's been really incredible conversations this week, and I hope that and we encourage you as the mess to continue and reach out to us individually. And let's just grow this thing. So we appreciate it as the mess. I hope you guys got something out of this, and you know, finish. Well, I guess we got a couple of hours left, so finish strong. Good luck. You all take it easy. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Take care.
Senior.
All right.
Thank you all.